Now going to open up to questions from the audience. If you do have a question for anyone in the panel, and I'll introduce the other two panellists in a minute, can you just make your way to one of the microphones? There's 4 microphones. When you get there, just state your name and where you're from and who you're addressing the question to, please. The other two panellists joining the presenters on stage are Michael Finucane, General Manager of our International Markets team, based in Singapore, and Dr. Christine Pitt, Chief Executive Officer of the MLA Donor Company. The MLA Donor Company, for those that are not aware of it, or MDC as it's commonly referred to, is a vehicle for attracting commercial investment from individual enterprises and others for innovation that will benefit the industry. This is revenue over and above that supplied by producer levies, and every investment is matched by the Australian government funds. So it's money that we invest in the industry using government funds and other companies' money for the benefit of the industry. Any questions? We had a question this morning, so I'll follow up on it for Michael Crowley. What is our adoption strategy, Michael? Came out this morning.
Yeah, so it was a good question from earlier on around adoption being perceived as a poor performer. I think, so I'm looking after the adoption program, which I didn't have time to include in my presentation this afternoon, but we've got a very clear strategy on what we're doing around adoption. We've got large-scale awareness programs, so the Beef Up forums that some of you hopefully have been to, pasture updates, it's U-time forums. They're really the opportunities to engage producers in large numbers, just to make sure everyone is aware of what are the latest outcomes of research and development that are ready to adopt. Then we've got another category for shorter courses between 1 to 3 days where it's a bit more specialist, so bred well, fed well workshops, business edge, grazing land management, nutrition edge programs where producers come in and there's a cost involved for producers to attend those workshops, and they're much more targeted. The third part is around assisted learning, where we've got smaller groups of producers who engage on a longer term basis, where they'll meet with a private consultant, and they work with that consultant to develop a program targeted to their priorities. And so we're rolling that out at the moment. That program's called Profitable Grazing Systems. And we're making all of our information available, working with those deliverers to improve the quality of what they can deliver. And then as a result, coming out of that, our investment is to collect the information, so we've got an evidence-based approach to what people are learning, so how are their skills improving, but more importantly, what are the returns for their business, and what's the return on their investment. So we ran a pilot for 12 months, and the average improvement in profitability for the businesses involved was $30,000, and that was 96 businesses that were engaged, and that was over a 9-month period. And we've built that program, a strategy around that program to roll that out. We also have producer demonstration sites where producers in groups will look at making some changes and looking at what the benefits are. I think the other initiative which Christine launched last year was the Producer Innovation Fast Track program. That really blew us away. We originally had a budget of $4 million worth of projects we thought would come forward, and there was over $16 million of applications that came through. And that really highlights to me that producers are willing to put money on the table, and I think it also challenges our traditional models of driving adoption. So we're really looking at how that pilot goes, what do we get out of that, and really taking looking at a different approach for adoption. But we need to take a whole farm system approach and a value chain approach in our adoption, and move away from doing feed-based work and genetics work and these things in isolation. We'll build them together and have a more holistic approach. So I guess it's my responsibility to improve the performance of adoption. I'm committed to doing that, and I'll certainly be held accountable for the performance of the adoption program.
Thanks, mate. We've got a question.
There's a few people won't like what I'm going to ask, but firstly, let me congratulate the MLA on the work they're undertaking. I used to work for Austrade, and so I can sort of benchmark where you're at and where you've come from, and it's fantastic. My question is on biosecurity, which is, for where I come from, it's on the far south coast, has always been an issue. If someone wanted to close down, and I'd hate to say the animal welfare people, but anyone who's against the livestock or the red meat industry could easily close it down by introducing foot and mouth disease into the feral deer population. Has MLA looked at or modelled what would happen if foot and mouth disease got into feral animals, particularly deer, because it wouldn't close down the industry on a farm-by-farm basis or on a state. It would close it in the whole of Australia. That's the way the feral deer population is spreading.
Okay, panellists, who wants to? Jane?
I can go. Yep, I'll give it a crack. Yep. So thank you very much for the question. I guess I'm not aware of any actual modelling that's been done specific around the outbreak of foot and mouth disease per se in a deer population. Certainly biosecurity is a massive risk right across the country. And what we do have in place is emergency disease response systems that actually do risk analyses around that type of activity. So not deer specific, but certainly there has been modelling done.
Thank you. Other questions? Microphone 3.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brett Hayward. We are bullock fatteners from South Gippsland in Victoria. And my question or comment probably won't be anything new, but it's directed to you, Jane. It's about traceability. On our property, we buy weaner calves in, sell them as bullocks. On average, we lose 10% of the NLIS tags every year. I'm assuming that those numbers stay on your system and are still there, but they're actually not there. And of those 10%, of course, they lose lifetime traceability. Not sure how that goes with all your modelling and your numbers and your data, but that's certainly an issue. And it's an issue that we can't control because we're buying it from somebody else, and most of it is around where they place it in here, non-readers as well. Get plenty of those sorts of things at the same time.
Sure, yeah, so certainly aware of the tag retention issue, and we're actually looking at lots of alternative ways that we can look at different tagging mechanisms as opposed to, staying with an ear tag, but very aware that that's a problem.
Ian.
Yeah, good afternoon. Just wanted to probably address this to Michael Crowley. Michael, to you and Sarah and your whole crew. And can I add in the likes of the David Hills in the room that do such a great job for Cattle Council and are rarely ever seen when these great presentations go up and we see just how far MSA is being taken and the opportunities and it's probably more exciting than it's ever been, I reckon, the future for MSA when we tag on all these other things and obviously not the least of it and pretty close to my heart is the EQG cipher. And I was interested, Michael, in your figures on the cost to industry of that, of those cattle not being graded or being not fitting into programs. And I think there's probably some more costs that are probably harder to quantify, but there'd be an awful lot of cattle being mouthed out there, and the 4 and 6 tooth cattle being cast aside and not even put through the MSA program. But one thing that's pretty close to my heart, and I really hate, is lost opportunity in the industry, and I think that's what we're talking about. So just last week, typical week at home, we're bringing grass-fed cattle through, and we're mouthing them. We're fat scanning and doing all sorts of other things and weighing, obviously, and looking at weight gains. But there's cattle there, and in some of our programs they go up to 4 teeth, so there's cattle with 4 teeth, but it happens the same with 2 teeth programs. So there's cattle there that are look likely that they'll cut an extra tooth in the next few weeks, couple of months. The feed's unbelievable that you could put them back on, but we're scanning those cattle and we're sending 5 and 6 and 7 mil cattle into the works because they're going to cut teeth. Those cattle aren't ready to sell. They're not going to make anywhere near the quality product they could if we kept them for another couple of 2 or 3 months and got them up to 11, 12, 13 mil of fat. So that is just a massive lost opportunity. It annoys the hell out of me as a producer, but what do? You've got to try and fit in these processor specifications. So there is a much, much bigger cost than you identified today, and there's also the whole human and animal welfare cost of mouthing cattle. So the sooner we got things like live ossification measures and we talk about dentition right out of the industry, the better.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, it's a great comment, and I don't know, Sean, if you want to comment on any live stuff that you're looking at down the track, but just on, I think it's a credit to the industry to have the foresight around the changes that have come through the language review, because I think without that change, that situation, you know, wouldn't change, because we haven't created the opportunity for that change. So the first step was getting it through the review and commercialised. We've got about 5 supply chains actively engaged in looking at their data and what transitioning to EQG would mean. Those early movers influence the rest of the industry. As I mentioned, there's one very large company that's got product already now going overseas. Sarah and the team have worked tirelessly with Department of Ag and to get approval from FSIS, and our international officers have been a tremendous support in making sure there won't be disruptions to trade. So we've really starting to clear the way and reducing those barriers to adoption, and we're committed as a group to work with industry, as I said, and I think it's a really good opportunity to probably have more of those discussions, Ian, and make sure that we've got the processors and brand owners making sure they're engaging in those conversations so that they can also understand the pain points. We need you know, I saw a great term the other day, a coalition of the willing. This is a voluntary program, but the benefits for all of industry to engage are really clear. We can articulate what we can capture through grids, but also the price signals need to evolve. I think we'll see grids evolve. I think anyone that saw what Tom put up around how simple grids could be, and it's great to see a large supply chain moving down that path. They're the early mover. And you know, we just need to support the people willing to make those changes, and we'll do what we can to support those brand owners. We've got a great co-marketing program. We've got a full-time MSA education officer. We've got the adoption team. We've got our private sector deliverers. We have a network through the regional consultation model with the producer committees and their members. We've got to utilise those networks to get the messaging out there. So hopefully today everyone can walk away and identify that those are the opportunities on the table, and we actively pursue them.
Thanks. Any other questions?
James Jackson, yes, I better have a question. I was just wondering, Michael, the eating quality work difference on sucker lambs versus yearling lambs, it seems a bit curious to me that research is going to be delivered after the decision on the lamb definition decision. Can you give an update on you know, the timeline on that eating quality research that Pethic's doing?
Yep, so the research between new season and old season lambs is happening in this financial year. What we know from our data that there's a continuum of eating quality, and as animals get older, the day that they cut their teeth, similar to the beef situation, the day a lamb becomes a hogget, quality doesn't just fall off a cliff like the price does. So we've tested product out to 36 months of age across loin cuts as well as leg cuts. And the loins certainly decline at a slower rate as animals get older compared to the leg cuts. And we're working with Sheep Producers Australia, the Australian Meat Industry Council through a sheep industry task force to address those language issues and to through the Sheep CRC that work is being funded through. David Pethick and the Lamb Supply Chain Group and other members of that group come and give updates to the task force so that the industry can make informed decisions about how that research is implemented. So, James, I guess we've got a very good and very clear due process in how we address changes with industry, and the Sheep Industry Task Force is a great vehicle for that. So we've got all supply chain participants represented there, both peak councils and people outside of the peak councils through the Lamb Supply Chain Group, all actively engaged. So if there are to be changes to things like the lamb definition review and any other language changes for the sheep industry, that task force making recommendations to the Australian Meat Industry Language and Standards Committee is a great due process and a great platform for addressing those language issues.
Okay, any more questions? There was a question this morning. Lisa, you might want to talk to it. Not quite the elephant in the room that you've had before, but marketing of animal welfare standards in the domestic market. We don't do it, and we have such high standards. Why do we not talk about it on the domestic market, or do we in different formats?
Certainly, when we think, thank you, Alistair, when we think about MLA's role, you know, it is typically one of promoting generic benefits when we think about our marketing programs. And until fairly recently, the benefits that consumers have sought in order of priority have actually been around nutrition, convenience and versatility, and that has been the primary focus of our marketing effort. We do, of course, have finite resources. We'll continue to watch the trends, and I shared quite openly the trend today. There are more consumers who are interested in animal welfare credentials. But as an industry, we have to be absolutely confident that if we choose to make that part of our generic marketing campaign, each and every cut, you know, needs to be compliant. Otherwise, we will certainly find ourselves short when it comes to, you know, advertising standards, consumer law, etc. So at this point, it's not something that we actively promote as part of our holistic generic marketing campaigns, because there are other purchase drivers, and I need to make sure that every campaign dollar spent, you know, delivers a return to farm gate. So.
Great, thank you. Do you want to come to the microphone? Thanks.
Mike Deckman, just on the adoption particularly, and it's a comment, and the quality assurance line right back to the farmer. Have we, it comes back to your programs, the accreditation in the various formats that we all go through. Is there anything on the agenda anywhere on continuing professional development for the farmer that's recorded that will link into that chain, so that you're going right back to the basics, keeping it simple? So right from where the farmer he's trained, we can show you that he is educated in his field, and or the farmer can use it as value adding for himself, that he shows that he's continuing to professionally develop himself.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think we've certainly discussed whether there is the ability to provide certification from going through different programs in which we've implemented. I think I guess we've had that conversation around. One of the things coming at us is we're getting asked for more evidence around sustainability, and certainly having an evidence-based approach to what we're doing around sustainability will become really important in the not too distant future. I guess at the moment we don't have those certifications in place, but if it is going to add value based, you know, an evidence-based approach to what producers have done, I think it really could add to, you know, when we do get audited and having those records to be able to, you know, really hand those over. But I guess that's something that isn't quite there today, but I'll be interested to, I guess, progress your thoughts on what might be really useful to have, and to make sure it's addressing the purpose.
So, thank you.
Thanks. No more questions? So please join me in expressing thanks to the members of the MLA leadership team for their presentations today. Thank you, panellists. Before we break, earlier on the year you may have seen a media release that came out saying that Meat and Livestock Australia has been awarded the first annual Hitachi Global Transformation Award for its work in using data to help drive innovation in the red meat industry. I'd like to invite Owen Keats from Hitachi, Richard Norton, MD of MLA, and Sean Starling to the stage, so Owen can present the award that was announced at Next 2017 by Hitachi in Las Vegas, and the MLA won the award from a field of 5 international finalists. So well done, MLA, and thank you, Owen.